Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Thank you very much to the person that sent this article to akprepper@gmail.com. If you have any intel to send me, please send it to that email address. It is listed under the description of the video. Alright, if you have any questions, send it to the other email address. It makes it easier for me to sift out those emails that are intel and those that are just questions. And please be patient as far as hearing back from me. Right now I'm about 250 emails behind in answering questions. Right, ladies and gentlemen? The great human experiment continues. These people that will end up eating real meat, that will end up eating meat that actually came off the hoof, are the ones that are trying to get us to eat this meat that is being created in a lab. Ready to eat some lab-grown meat? The FDA will soon decide. The science experiment could soon reach your supermarket. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the science experiment, right? Don't think it's anything other than that. It is you and I that are the science experiment. Look at the experiment that all governments around the world have been conducting with fiat currencies over the last 70 years or so. That is an experiment, ladies and gentlemen, something that's never really been done at the scale that it is being done right now. And what is it doing? It is destroying humanity. It is what it's doing. It is destroying humanity and making those forces that want to rule us stronger. All this fiat currency that's going on. And now what are they doing? Of course, they are attacking the food system. That way they can have control over the food. You have control over the food. You have control over the people. I digress. Near the end of last year, Upside Foods Inc. opened a meat processing plant like no other. Inside the $50 million facility just outside Berkeley, California, workers cultivate small clumps of animal cells in large vats over 2 weeks, slowly growing them into chicken breasts and steaks. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled. They are not growing these things into chicken breasts and steaks. They are growing them into clumps of protein that they call chicken breasts and steaks. If there is any time that you should be putting away your own food, if there is any time that you should be dehydrating or freeze drying or pressure canning your own proteins, it is now, ladies and gentlemen, because they will not stop. They will not stop until this entire system of governance under which we live, the financial system, the pharmaceutical system, the food system, the energy system, all of it is reset. And hopefully when it is reset, when it is restarted, it will be restarted in a manner that is favorable to humanity instead of being favorable to the few that want to rule all of humanity. No animal is slaughtered at any point in the process. The flesh is manufactured. At 53,000 square feet, the factory is the largest ever dedicated to so-called cultivated meat. The company hopes consumers will be able to buy the meat it makes sometime in 2022. Unlike plant-based meat alternatives that have been on the market for years, cultivated meat is real meat. I would say not, ladies and gentlemen. Last I knew, meat is taken from an animal. Alright? And for those of you that don't eat meat, that don't believe in taking meat from animals, I am there with you. It is a free country. You should be able to eat what you want. But most people that I know, and I would say most people in general, are carnivores, are meat eaters. Alright, ladies and gentlemen? The techniques used to grow it are well developed. The problem for startups such as Upside is producing the meat in large quantities while achieving the smell, texture, and mouthfeel diners expect. Man, and look at this, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, take a look at this picture right here. People often talk about the environmental impact that raising a cow makes. Do you know how much energy it takes to build a facility like this, to run a facility like this? I used to work in the dairy industry, right? And I'm sure the dairy industry is nothing like this, but there was equipment just like this in the dairy industry when I used to work in it. It takes an awful lot of energy to run this equipment. and to make this equipment. It reminds me of the people that are all for climate change, talking about how we have to stop driving big vehicles, about how we have to stop flying, and they're all taking private jets to whatever meetings it is they go around the world. And then them justifying that it's okay for them to take private jets because they're doing it for a good cause. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we live in interesting times. After 7 years of work, Upside says it's ready to pump out as much as 50,000 pounds of food from the California plant. We want to be able to ship product from here nationally and then internationally, says Uma Valetti, the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder. He says Upside can make just about any meat product, but it will focus first on things like chicken nuggets and chicken breasts and has already started production at the facility. When I tried an Upside chicken breast last year, it smelled and looked exactly like grilled chicken. It tasted like it too, though the texture was a bit softer and less juicy. My taste test required me to sign a waiver before the public gets the same chance to try it. Upside needs a green light from U.S. regulators. Both the Food and Drug Administration and the Department of Agriculture have spent 3 years figuring out how they'll monitor the cultivated meat industry, visiting laboratories and examining every process companies use to make their product. Although cultivated meat itself is considered safe, there are plenty of unanswered questions about how often the vats should be cleaned and how the meat should be transported and stored. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is not real meat. They say cultivated meats, and that's exactly what it is. It is a meat byproduct. Not even a byproduct of meat. It is just a meat product, if they want to call it that. It's like, you know, the cheese that you buy at the store that comes in the little plastic, you know, the Kraft cheese. If you read the small print, it says processed cheese food. But it's not actual cheese that you make and then you slice up. It's processed cheese food. And that's what reminds me of this right here, this stuff they're making. There's also the question of what to name it. The agencies issued a public request for comment in November asking interested parties to chime in on exactly what meat that's been raised in a vat should be called. Upside and others have pushed for cultivated meat instead of synthetic meat, vat meat, or other less appetizing alternatives. Such deliberations are an encouraging sign for those hoping U.S. agencies will soon approve the products. Another potentially favorable development. The USDA recently spent $10 million to create the National Institute for Cellular Agriculture, which is meant to back research in the field and turn the U.S. into a leader in manufactured meat. You know what I'm thinking about now, ladies and gentlemen? There's a lot of dollar signs behind this. There's a lot of dollar signs behind this, and I bet you that there's a lot of big players up in Washington who have a lot of stock options in these types of foods. There's been this haggling over the regulatory framework, but these are signs that the agencies are really close, says Chase Purdy, the author of Billion Dollar Burger, inside Big Tech's race for the future of food. And that's exactly what it is, ladies and gentlemen, $1 billion. And as much, I'm not even being critical, but just looking at this closely, it doesn't even look like chicken. I think that's supposed to be chicken. And to finish it off, ladies and gentlemen, it's already possible to purchase some types of man-made meat. In December 2020, Singapore became the first nation to approve the sale of cultivated meat. Israel's Aleph farm says it will be ready with some vat-grown, thin-cut steaks by year-end. California companies such as Blue Nalu Inc. and Wild Type hope to follow with seafood products, including sushi-grade fish. Meanwhile, San Francisco-based Eat Just Inc. is already selling chicken in Singapore. According to Purdy, there's been pushback from beef ranchers and their lobbyists about the arrival of cultured meat, though industrial processors have largely welcomed the technology. Given the regulatory activity and the hundreds of millions of dollars already invested in American startups, the U.S. has strong interest in becoming an early leader in the industry. My view is that it might be a perfect storm that makes the U.S. the next country to greenlight cultured meat, Purdy says. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've often said that I'm all for freedom. Do as you wish, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else. So if you want to purchase and consume this processed meat or cultivated meat or vat meat or whatever it is that they want to call it, by all means do so. Just don't try to push it on to people that don't want to eat it. And don't try to block people from being able to raise their own livestock so that they can eat and live as they wish. Other than that, freedom reigns, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about freedom. So good for you if you want this stuff. For me, I'd rather stick to the real stuff. Having said that, thank you very much for joining in. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.